In the last session, we discussed the algorithm for selection sort. In today's session, we'll see the time complexity. So this is the algorithm for selection sort. Let's see how to find the time complexity. So consider this algorithm here. How many times this for loop will get executed? This for loop gets executed from 0 to n minus 1. That is, if there are 5 elements, if the size of n is 5, it executes for 4 times. That is, it executes for n minus 1 times. This for loop executes for n minus 1 times. Now we have a j loop. So how many times it gets executed? J starts from this value. So we are comparing this minimum with j. So minimum with j 1 time, then minimum with this element 2 times, then this with this 3 times, then again this with this 4 times. So this also get executed for n minus 1 times. Okay, so this also get executed for n minus 1 times for I is equal to 0. So when for I is equal to 0, this executes for n minus 1 times. For I is equal to 1, it again executes for n minus 1 times. So similarly, for n minus 1 times, it executes for n minus 1 times. That is, n minus 1 into n minus 1 times it gets executed. So total is, it executes for n square. How this n square came? So for I is equal to 0, j executed for n minus 1 times. I is equal to 1, j executes for n minus 1 times. I is equal to 2, it executes for n minus 1 times. Similarly, I executes for n minus 1 times. For n minus 1 times I get executed, j also get executed for n minus 1 times. So that is n minus 1 into n minus 1 times. So its order is n square. So order is n square. We have to consider only the highest order. So the equation will turn out to be something like n square minus 2n plus 1. Something like this. So we have to consider only the higher order. That is n square. So this j loop executes for n square times. And all these are the constants. So if condition, if is satisfied, so how many times this if will run? If will also run for n square times. So this simply will execute for a constant number of times, but since it is within this for and I loop, this also will execute for that many number of times if condition is satisfied. So next is this if condition. So this if condition is within this for loop, and therefore this will get executed for how many times? N minus 1 times. Okay, so the time complexity is, consider the higher order, n square. So n square is the time complexity. So time complexity is big of n square. So for a selection sort, the best case time complexity and the worst case time complexity are the same. So the time complexity of selection sort algorithm is order of n square. Let's see the best case and worst case complexities. So let's consider the best case first. Here, I'll give an example of best case. Consider the input. Suppose this is the input and we want to arrange them in ascending order. Okay, so if you see this is already in ascending order. So what if we are giving this input to the selection sort? Let's see the time complexity. So what will be the first process? The first process will be, the first element will be taken as the minimum and it will be compared with all other elements. So I loop, first it enters into I loop and then it enters, so there the first element will be set as the minimum, the first index position will be set as the minimum and it enters into j loop to make a comparison with all other elements. So therefore, it enters into j loop and this condition fails all the time because every time this is the minimum when comparing with each of the other elements. The first element is the minimum. Therefore, this condition fails and this operation will not take place. But this j loop will be executing for n minus 1 times because till the end of the array it has to perform the comparison to find the minimum. That means the program anyway takes this time complexity of n square, and that is why for best case time complexity is in the order of n square. And next, consider the worst case. I will take an example. Suppose that we want to arrange this array into ascending order. The input that is given is in descending order, which means that we will be performing or we will be entering into all the conditions for every iteration. The program will be executing each and every line for all the passes. This if condition will be true for all the cases, and this swap will be performed for all the cases. So that is the worst case. So what is the maximum complexity of this program? It is n square. Therefore, for worst case also it will be n square, because this step will be executed for n minus 1 times. This step will be executed for order of n square times. This step also will be executed for order of n square. This also order of n square. So that means this plus n square plus n square plus n square, and this one for n times. So what we will get? So how do we find the time complexity? Time complexity is equal to, so the first line will get executed for n minus 1 times. So we don't have to consider this constant part. Okay, we just consider the n because this is negligible. So we'll just consider n. This n will be a huge number, some 1000, 2000 or 5000. So minus 1 means it does not make any sense. So we'll just write the order n, and this loop will execute for how many times? N minus 1 into n minus 1 times. That is the order of n square. So n square plus this if condition is within these two for loops. Therefore, it also will be executed for n square times. This also for n square times. No, this condition will get executed whenever this is true. So it depends on the input. Okay. So this if condition will be checked for all the inputs, but this portion will get executed only for, okay, so this get executed for n square times, because for all the cases this if condition will be checked. Only if the condition is true, then this will happen. So if the condition is true or false, it depends upon the input. But for a worst case, always this condition will be true. Therefore, this statement also will take n square time. This single statement. Okay. Now once we exit from the for loop, the first j loop, now we are within the I loop. While this statement is executed, we are within the I loop. So I loop travels for n times, right? N minus 1 times. So this if condition will happen for n minus 1 times. We can write it as n times. Whereas this swap will happen only if this if condition is true. So in this case, in this worst case, this if condition will always be true, because always a swap will be required. So therefore, this also happens for n times. So this is the complexity, which is 3n plus 3n square. And usually when you are considering the complexity, we will not consider, if it is 3n, we will take it as n. So here the greatest complexity, so we can just simply write it as in the order of, when we are writing it as an order, so we can simply write it as order of n square. So for worst case also the time complexity is order of n square. So this time complexity basically depends upon the algorithm that we are using. There can be multiple algorithms to a single program. So always write the algorithm in such a way that the time complexity is lesser. That is the optimized way of writing a program. So if you have any doubts from this section, you can ask me through the comment box, or I have given the mail ID in the description box. You can mail me directly. I hope you understood this portion clearly. Thanks for watching.